Hello and welcome to Narayana IS. I'm Pratik, faculty for Polity, International Relations and Security. Students, in the last class we discussed 10 topics under the theme Constitution. So we have covered all the topics in the last two lectures. We have completed all the topics falling under the theme Constitution. From today, we are going to start a new theme, that is Parliament, State Legislature and Local Government. So we will try to complete all the topics falling under this theme: Parliament, State Legislature and the Local Government. I hope, students, you have understood all the topics we have discussed so far under the theme Constitution. Any questions, I request you to please ask in the comment section. And most importantly, students, I hope you are revising the topics that we are covering in the class, right? The link of the notes of the topics will be mentioned in the description. So I request you to please open the link and make sure you are downloading the notes of the topic, so that you ensure that you are revising each and every topic, so that you are fully prepared for the prelims examination. On this note, let us start with today's discussion. So again, for all those students who are appearing in the year 26 and 27, Narayana IS has introduced 1 year and 2 year integrated courses. So you can see the QR code on your screen. All those students interested to enroll in our program can scan the QR code and fill in the required details. Our team shall get back to you, right? So make sure you are opening the link, you're scanning the QR code and ensuring you're filling in the required details. So as I told you that this is a new theme that we'll be starting with today, that is Parliament, State Legislature and the Local Government. These are the 8 topics that we shall be discussing under a new theme that will be starting today. The first topic talks about the Lok Sabha Ethics Committee. So all these topics have been in the news. So what I hope by now you must have understood that we actually take the current affairs topic and link that with the static topic. And we also discuss the evolving features, principles that we get to read in the newspaper and different sources. So this talks about the ethics committee, then declining parliament productivity, will discuss few statistics, then the finances of the Panchayati Raj institution, then we'll discuss the CAC report on the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act which pertains to the municipalities, we'll discuss about the anti-defection law, we'll discuss about cabinet secretary, will discuss about oath of members of parliament. I think the 6th topic is misplaced, so this is the topic that we already had discussed. So these are the 8 topics that we shall be discussing in today's lecture. Let us start with the first topic. The context of the first topic is the Lok Sabha Ethics Committee recently recommended the expulsion of MP Mahua Moitra of the Trinamool Congress. Now, as the MP was expelled based on the recommendation given by the ethics committee, it is expected from the students they know a thing or two about the ethics committee, right? Now, following allegations of accepting cash in return for asking parliamentary questions. So, this was a very famous cash for query case, which means the MP, she accepted cash and on behalf of someone she raised a question in the parliament, right? So, this issue was exposed and then the matter was referred to the ethics committee. Now, questions on the parliamentary committees are often asked in the examination, as it was asked in the year 2014. That's the reason understanding and studying such topics become very, very important for your examination, right? So, what is the ethics committee in the Indian Parliament? Now, see, the idea of having ethics committee, right, for both the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha was first proposed in the year 1996 during the presiding officers conference in Delhi. Who are the presiding officers in Lok Sabha? In Lok Sabha, it is the speaker, and in the Rajya Sabha, it is the chairman, right? Now, the ethics committee, right, the purpose was to ensure that the members of parliament, they maintain ethical and moral standards in their conduct. Now, they are the people who have been appointed by their constituencies. MPs are responsible for making laws for entire country, which means that it is expected from the MPs that they maintain ethical and moral standards. They raise the ethical and moral bar so that the people of the country should follow them. Unfortunately, it happens the otherwise. It happens exactly the opposite. So that is the reason the ethics committee came into being. Now, if you see the composition of ethics committee, now please expect a question from the ethics committee in the examination, right? So when it comes to the composition, the committee consists of 15 members, right? Appointed by, again, they may confuse you with appointed by or elected by. So make sure that the members are appointed by the presiding officer of Lok Sabha. Now, please remember, we have ethics committee for both Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. Here we are talking about the ethics committee of Lok Sabha, consists of 15 members. Who appoints? The speaker. What is the term? 1 year. Ad hoc body to permanent body, which means initially ethics committee was an ad hoc body. Ad hoc, which means temporary. Later on, it became a permanent body in the year 2015. Ethics committee, also remember the year. The ethics committee for Lok Sabha for the first time was constituted in the year 2000. At that time, it was an ad hoc committee. Later on, it became a permanent committee in the year 2015. If I talk about the ethics committee of Rajya Sabha, it consists of 10 members, 15, year 10, appointment, again the presiding officer. Who is the presiding officer? The chairman. Who is the ex officio? Vice president. Term is 1 year. And ethics committee of Rajya Sabha was first constituted in the year 1997. So this is the difference. Each and every point is very, very important. Make sure that you remember each of these points for your examination. Now, what is the purpose? We discussed to look into complaints and reports about the moral and ethical conduct of the MPs. Right? Then to examine cases of misconduct or violations of expected behavior by MPs. The committee can investigate only MPs, not non-members. So the purpose, so we expect the people who are elected by the people of our country to behave responsibly, to behave morally. And in case the members of parliament violate the ethical and moral standards, then inquiry, for example, there now we know that many MPs, right? Now in this case, it was accused that the MP had accepted money. Accepting money, which means is a form of bribe. So this goes against the accepted moral behavior. So this ethics committee, let's say an MP has violated ethics, or let's say uh, if he goes or violates the ethical standards or behavior, then investigation is raised against that MP. Once investigation is raised, then who oversees the, let's say, proceedings? It is the ethics committee. Ethics committee examines case of misconduct or violation, right? Now, appointment is something that we already have discussed. Now, let us try to understand how the ethics committee works. The first stage is when a member of parliament, or let's say any member, files a complaint. Filing a complaint, it constitutes first stage of how the ethics committee function, which means, please remember, anyone can file a complaint against MP. Anyone, which means you or me can also file a complaint against MP. But anyone. But it is important to understand that it must be submitted through a current Lok Sabha MP, which means I cannot directly go and complain against an MP. I need to approach some MP. This MP on my behalf will file a complaint. Now the complaint that is sent, right? The complaint that is submitted must also include evidence. When I am complaining, I also need to provide evidence and an affidavit. Now, affidavit, in this affidavit, let's say I want to complain against, let's say, one MP, then I need to submit an affidavit. In this affidavit, I'll state that the complaint that I'm making is not false or frivolous, and it is not meant to harass an MP. And let's say now here an MP is directly making a complaint against another MP. The first case, I am making a complaint against an MP, but I need to approach one MP, another MP, which means all in all, only a MP can file a complaint. So when, let's say, an outsider is filing a complaint, affidavit is required. But when one MP is making a complaint against another MP, then affidavit is not required. So filing a complaint is the first stage. Second is valid complaints. Now the committee does not accept complaints based only on media reports. Now media can say anything. So committee does not accept the reports only on media reports, or if the matter is already in court, which means if the matter is sub judice. Sub judice. And please remember that the complaint that is made must be backed by evidence and also affidavit when an outsider is making. Then comes the most important role, that is the speakers. Here we are talking about the ethics committee of Lok Sabha. Now speaker's role, who is the presiding officer, can send the complaint to the ethics committee. Speaker is the one who decides whether a complaint that he has received should be sent to the ethics committee. Then starts the process of inquiry, which means once, let's assume that the presiding officer has sent a complaint to the ethics committee. Now begins the inquiry. Now the committee first conducts, which committee? Ethics committee first conducts a preliminary inquiry to decide whether to take up the complaint or not. In this preliminary inquiry, the committee will decide whether we have to accept the complaint or not. And after, once it reviews the complaint, the committee prepares its reports and recommendation. Let's say the committee has accepted the complaint, it reviews, it goes through the evidence, and finally it prepares a report, and then it also submits the report along with recommendation to the house. Now the discussion starts in the house. This report is submitted. Who submits the report? The ethics committee chairman. He submits a report to the speaker, who can then allow the matter to be discussed in the Lok Sabha. Now please remember that a time slot is allotted by the speaker to discuss on the recommendation or report sent by the ethics committee. Based on the discussion, voting is held, and then finally it will be decided whether what action shall be taken against an MP against whom a complaint is raised. Now in this context, let me discuss the 2005 infamous cash for query scandal. This scam or this scandal, it actually brought down the reputation of the Indian Parliament, the highest law-making body of a country. Now please understand this, infamous case. Now in the year 2005, right, in the year 2005, a major scandal came to light when 10 members of parliament were caught on camera. These members were caught on camera taking money. They took the money in exchange for asking questions in parliament. So someone told these 10 MPs to ask a question, and these MPs, they took money, and in return they asked the question in the parliament. Now these questions were actually meant to benefit certain private individuals and companies. Now this kind of act was seen as a serious misuse of their official position on the part of these 10 MPs. Now you may wonder how this came to light. Because of a sting operation. Now this sting operation was actually conducted by a television channel, a news website called, I'm not sure, it was something like Cobra Post. Cobra Post. This Cobra Post was, working in collaboration with a Hindi news channel called Aaj Tak. The operation was named as Operation Duryodhan, right? And this operation showed through sting operation how the MPs accepted bribes ranging, and they accepted bribes worth, let's say, a few lakhs and crores of rupees. Of the 10 MPs, 8 MPs were from Lok Sabha and 2 MPs were from the Rajya Sabha. They caught in the camera accepting money. Now, after the video was released, there's a huge public uproar, and both the houses took the matter very, very seriously. Then the presiding officer of both the houses. Why? Because of the 10 MPs, which means the MPs were involved from both the houses. So the presiding officer of two houses, they sent this investigation or complaint to the ethics committee of both Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. And the ethics committee found the MPs guilty of unethical conduct. And finally, there's a discussion held in the parliament, and finally the parliament passed a motion to expel all the 10 MPs. This was one of the rarest and very strict action taken against the MPs who were found guilty of misconduct and violating the ethical standard. This actually was the first time in Indian history that such action was taken against so many MPs at once for corruption. And this case actually sent a strong message about maintaining honesty and ethics in public office, and it also reinforced or strengthened the importance of having the ethics committee in the Indian parliament. So I hope you understood each and every important facts associated with the ethics committee. Right now, students, let us move on to the next topic. The next topic talks about declining parliament productivity. What is the work of parliament? To make laws. Right. Now, a recent report, right, related to the 17th Lok Sabha has revealed that some concerning trends in how the parliament functioned over the past few years. Right. Now, if you look at this, so see, a question on parliament are often asked in the examination, right? When we discuss in the first lecture itself, we discuss the themes from where majority of the questions are asked in the examination. Here you see a question on parliament. The procedure in the parliament was asked in the year 2017. Now in this image, if you look at this image carefully, this image the first talks about the average annual sitting days. In the first Lok Sabha, on an average, the MPs sat for 135 days. In a year, the MPs met in the parliament for 135 days. But if you compare the first Lok Sabha, the productivity, the functioning in the first Lok Sabha with that of the 17th Lok Sabha, the number has significantly dropped to 55%. Which means of the 365 days, the member of parliament, they only met for 55 days. And if you see here, the percentage of bills referred to committees, right, standing committee as well as the ad hoc committee, in the 14th Lok Sabha, if you see that 60% of the bills were referred to the committees. See, committees, which means the committees are members who are experts in their respective fields. Again, the committees comprise members of parliament as well, but here in the committees, right, the members who are part of the committee can also get in the experts in that respective field and take their opinion. But in the 17th Lok Sabha, only 16% of the bills were referred to the committees. And this is indeed a disturbing trend, worrying trend. This is an issue that we need to look into very, very seriously. Now, let us discuss few findings, right? We have few numbers over here. So, let us discuss. See, one of the most striking findings in the 17th Lok Sabha year that we discussed, that the Lok Sabha met for an average of only 55 days of each year. Right? This, if we compare with the first Lok Sabha, it's a significant drop. This means that, what does it mean? It means that parliament had less time for debates, discussion, there's no scrutiny, the bills were passed without the reference of parliamentary committees, which means the bills were not discussed in detail. Another key concern is the speed at which the bills were passed. Now, according to the study, 58% of the bills were passed. 58% of the bills were passed within just 2 weeks of being introduced. It was introduced and 58% of the bills were passed within a period of 2 weeks. This suggests that many laws were cleared without enough time for discussion or let's say review. A bill is supposed to have thorough discussion, detailed scrutiny, and then a bill is supposed to get passed. But when a government has majority both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, right, we get to see such instances where the government is passing without referring the bill to the committees. For example, the Jammu and Kashmir reorganization bill, right? The Jammu and Kashmir reorganization bill of 2019, which actually bifurcated the state of Jammu and Kashmir into two union territories, were passed in both the houses within just 2 days after being introduced. It's also important to note that 35% of the bills passed in Lok Sabha were passed with less than an hour of discussion, which means only an hour of discussion was held. A similar trend was also observed in Rajya Sabha, where 34% of the bills were, received very limited debate. Now, again, these numbers are not important, but again, here, this numbers, they actually explain the importance given to the bills and how the bills are passed without detailed discussion. Now, talking about the bills referred to the committees, the study also showed that only 16% of the bills were referred to the parliamentary committees for detailed explanation. Now, earlier, if you see until the 14th Lok Sabha, majority of the bills were referred to the parliamentary committees. Now, committee scrutiny, please remember, committee scrutiny is very, very important because it allows the experts and MPs to examine the fine details, the minute details of the bills. They can also seek the public input and also ensure that wherever there are gaps in the bill, that gaps can be filled in. Now, another worrying observation is related to the union budget. Now, in the 17th Lok Sabha, around 80% of the total budget was passed without any discussion. What does it mean? This means that most of the country's spending expenditure plans were approved without the parliament going into the details. Something that should be done thoroughly to ensure accountability and transparency. Which means when the parliament is spending on behalf of people, there should be a detailed scrutiny. Unfortunately, 80% of the expenditure was done without having a detailed scrutiny. So, all in all, in summary or in conclusion, we understand that the findings suggest that the 17 Lok Sabha spent very, very little time in session. It passed the laws faster with, let's say, very limited number of debate. It referred fewer bills to the committees and discussed only a small portion of the union budget. These trends actually raise very, very serious questions about the health of parliamentary scrutiny and democratic, deliberation in India's legislative process. Now, why this topic was important is because at times, UPSC is also asking question on certain statistics, certain facts. That's the reason discussing such topics, it becomes very, very important, because the UPSC may give you few statements and ask you which of the statements are true. So it talks about, let's say, consider the following statements about parliamentary productivity. It may give you 3 statements. And that's the reason discussing such questions or topics is very, very important for the prelims examination. All right. Let's move on to the next topic. Now, this talks about the finances of Panchayati Raj institutions, right? Now, the RBI recently released a report titled Financial Status of Panchayati Raj Bodies. This covered the span of 2020 until the period 2023. It highlights the financial condition of the Panchayati Raj institutions. Financial condition, it pointed out certain issues in their revenue sources, spending patterns, and also dependence on the government funds, especially the state government. Now again, see, questions on Panchayati Raj institutions are often asked in the examination as it was asked in the year 2021. That's the reason such topics become extremely important to understand. Now, if we talk about the Panchayat's own sources of revenue, which are the sources of revenue for the Panchayats? Now, the Panchayats, they mainly collect revenue through property taxes. The main sources is property, then local fees, then we also have, let's say, fines. Now, these sources contribute very, very little to their overall income, and this shows that the panchayats are heavily dependent on the not only the state but also the central government transfer for proper and effective functioning. Now, we know that under the Indian federal model, we have three tiers of government, where the central government, state government, and the local government. Each of these institutions are meant to function independently, but unfortunately, despite creating the third tier for local governance in the year 1993, unfortunately, we see that these local bodies, be the Panchayati Raj institutions or let's say the municipalities, are not functioning as per the expectation. Why? Because of the involvement, or let's say uh, because of the interference of the state government into the functioning of the local government. Now, here are few numbers. Let's go through this number. Average revenue of panchayats. The report shows that average revenue, right, per panchayat was 21.2 lakh in 2020. Average revenue per panchayat was 21 lakh, which rose to 23.2 lakh in 21-22. But it dropped significantly to 21 lakh in 22-23. Importantly, only 1.1% of this revenue came from their own. This is a very, very disturbing trend. So this number is extremely important. Again, a question in the prelims on such statements, facts can be asked in the examination. So this actually highlights the extent to which they are dependent on the governments, be it central government or state government. Talking about the expenditure, the panchayat spending declined from 17.3 lakh in 20 to 12.5 lakh in 22-23. Now this drop is mainly because the expenditure was unusually high during the COVID-19 lockdown, but it was reduced afterward as the emergency spending came down. Now, if I talk about the devolution of power and impact, what is devolution of power? That is, the central government is devolving the power to the state government. We have the seventh schedule where the union list, state list, concurrent list, and then the state government also further devolves the power to the local government through the 73rd and 74th Constitution Amendment Act. Now, talking about the devolution of power and impact, what has been the impact? Now, see, the report, the report by the RBI, it noted that there's a lot of variation between states in how much power and responsibility they give to the panchayats. Now, states that have devolved more functions tend to perform better in public services such as health, education, infrastructure, water supply, or let's say take sanitation. So here you understand that development of a state is directly proportional to the development of the local bodies, or let's say local people. But there are challenges. If we talk about the challenges in fiscal data availability, now this challenges as reported by RBI, it suggests that it is difficult to assess the true financial health of the Panchayati Raj institutions. Difficult to assess true financial health. Why? Because the data on their income and spending is often incomplete, or let's say they are unavailable. Now, major barriers to increasing local tax revenue include a small tax base, lack of let's say proper administrative system, and also we experience shortage of trained personnel, which means Even if they wish, the local bodies cannot increase local tax. Why? Because if they increase local tax, they have to face criticism from the people. So, in order to ensure that they remain in power, they refrain from increasing local taxes, and that's the reason the people in the local level, or let's say the functioning, it suffers because of such challenges. Then, if I talk about the revenue expenditure versus the gross state domestic product, gross state domestic product, the report shows that the share of panchayat revenue expenditure in the gross state domestic product is very low in all states. See, again, such statements can be asked in the examination. Less than 0.6 percentage. The lowest has been found in Bihar, which is 0.001 percentage, and the highest is 0.56 percentage. Now, what does this number indicate? This means that the panchayats across India are spending very little compared to the overall income of their respective states. Panchayats across India, all the states are spending very little compared to the overall income of their respective states. The income is going up, but the spending in proportion is not increasing. What is revenue expenditure? Which means it refers to money the panchayats spend on daily operations like services, local development, sanitation, water supply, rural roads, health, and what is the state gross state domestic product, which essentially means GDP, is nothing but it is the total value of goods and services produced in a state in a year. It's like a state's total income. Now, the report essentially states that the panchayat revenue expenditure is less than 0.6 percentage of the GSTP in all the states, the gross state domestic product in all the states. It means that the local rural governments are handling and spending only a tiny fraction of their state's economic output. For example, in Bihar, the ratio is just 0.001 percentage, which shows that panchayats, they have extremely limited financial activity, or they have very limited control on the finances. Now, let us also discuss the constitutional provisions and grants, or the question is how panchayats they mobilize the finances. How do they get the finances? Again, this is a very important dimension which can be asked in the examination. Now, when it comes to Central Finance Commission. Now, under Article 280 of the Constitution, under Article 280 of the Indian Constitution, the Central Finance Commissions, right, recommend grants for panchayats from the central tax pool. Who? The Central Finance Commission, which means Central Finance Commission also recommends the grants that has been given to the local governments or the panchayats. Now, over the years, the grants have increased significantly. If I look at the number, it was rupees 4,381 crore recommended by the 10th Finance Commission to 2.37 lakh crore under the 15th Finance Commission. And these grants aim to strengthen the panchayats so that the panchayats can carry out their constitutional duties and also ensure they improve the governance, that is the infrastructure, and infrastructure for that matter we have sanitation, water supply at the local level. So this is the Finance Commission and this is a constitutional provision. Then under Article 243, the State Finance Commission must be set up every 5 years. It is a constitutional mandate that State Finance Commission should be constituted every 5 years. Why? So that they can review the panchayat's financial position and such as how state resources, which are the state resources like tax, the tolls, the grants can be shared with them as well. Again, we see that under Article 243 itself, right, the panchayats have the power. They have the power to collect taxes, tolls, duties under Article 243. And this actually gives them legal and constitutional, let's say, basis to raise their own revenue. Unfortunately, this is up to the state legislature of that particular state to decide which taxes can be assigned to the panchayats. Here the states can raise, the local government, the panchayats can raise the taxes, but it is the state legislature that decides which taxes or the type of taxes can be assigned to the panchayats, and this leads to differences in their financial powers across states. Here again we see that the southern states are performing better than the North Indian states. So this is a constitutional and the legal basis. I hope you understood. We also have other funding source, which means other than the central government funds as well as state government funds, we also have the centrally sponsored schemes, which means panchayats also receive the money through centrally sponsored schemes, like we have the Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan, then a Swamitwa scheme, the National Horticulture Mission. Now these schemes, right, the purpose of this scheme is to improve the local governance. Local governance, when it comes to local governance, we have the land ownership records, then we have the farming system, then we have the health, education. In addition to the central sponsored schemes, the panchayats also receive funds from the international bodies like the World Bank. It provides funding for specific development projects focused on rural development, be it sanitation or let's say infrastructure development. Despite receiving funds from central government, state government, from the international institutions, the finances of the panchayats are poor. I hope you understood the third topic. Let us now move on to the fourth topic, which is the CAG report on the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. This Constitutional Amendment Act pertains to municipalities. Now, CAG recently released a compilation of audit reports that evaluated how the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act has been implemented across 18 Indian states. So CAG has released a report. Now this question, now the topic is discussing how the municipalities have performed in 18 states. The CAG has released a report. So questions on CAG, also the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act have been asked in the exam many times. Right? For example, I think a question on CAG was asked in the year 2021. That's the reason we discuss the topics which are important for the examination. Now let us go through few statistics. There are over 400 million citizens living in Indian cities. This number is estimated to grow to 800 million by 2050. The cities occupy only 3% of area, but their contribution to India's GDP is over 60%. It shows that the cities are contributing more to the GDP. By 2030, 75% of the country's GDP is expected to come from the urban areas. So these statistics, these numbers are important. So I please request you to remember these numbers. Let us try to understand what exactly is 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now please remember that this amendment to the Constitution, it was passed more than 3 decades. When it was passed in the year 1993. The purpose was to give the urban local self-government constitutional status and empower them to function as institutions of self-governance. Now we know that with nearly 50% of India's population is expected to live in the cities by 2050. And we know that when 50%, half of the Indian population will be staying in villages, the role of urban local government bodies in managing urban development and also to ensure that delivering quality service has become increasingly important. Because if you see the urban areas and the challenges, the problems the urban areas are facing, they're enormous, they're huge. And as a reason, it is very important that the urban local government bodies, the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act provisions be discussed very seriously and pressure be mounted on the urban local bodies so that they function effectively and efficiently. Now, when I talk about the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, right, it was brought into effect in the year 1993, was passed in 1992, it came into power in the year 1993. Now, constitutional status, which means that, for example, local bodies like municipalities and municipal corporation, right? Now, every state was expected to ensure that they establish local government bodies in their respective states. This actually allowed states to legally empower them with functions and responsibilities, which means in the year 1993, every state was expected to ensure that they establish local bodies and also assign them functions and responsibilities. Now, the 73rd Amendment Act, it introduced 11th schedule. The 74th Amendment Act, it introduced 12th schedule. So 12th schedule has a list of all the functions and responsibilities the urban local bodies are expected to meet. For example, it's urban planning, then water supply, sanitation, public health, most importantly, the slum improvement. Right? Now, when it comes to key findings of the CAG. Now, this part I request you to please read by your own. For that, I request you to please download the link which is mentioned in the description. Download the notes PDF copy of this particular topic or all the topics and make sure you read each and every finding by the CAP, by the Comptroller and Auditor General. For example, one finding which was reported by CAC was that most states have passed laws to transfer an average of 17 out of 18 functions listed in the 12th schedule. However, how well these functions are equally carried out, it varies widely across different states. Then, if you see the findings of the CAG, now the CAG is talking discussing on the institutional empowerment of the urban local self-government bodies. It talks of the financial empowerment of the urban local government bodies. It talks about the human resource mobilization and incentives. So this findings of CAG is very important. So make sure that you're reading all the points because these findings are important not only for prelims examination but also for the mains examination. And as it is self-explanatory, I request you to please read by your own. So the essence is, even after 30 years of the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, many urban local bodies, they still lack real power, which means they do not have adequate funding, they do not have proper staffing, the staff is low. Yes, there have been some progress has been made in devolving responsibilities and also, for example, to increase the participation of women, but there are many challenges which are still pending. For example, with the financial independence, the institutional strength, and for urban areas to function effectively and let's say meet the ever increasing demands, every state must commit to ensure that they strengthen the urban local bodies so as to ensure that the urban local bodies are in a position to meet each and every demand, ever increasing demand of the ever increasing population in the urban cities. So it is important that what is mentioned in law should translate into practice as well. And this brings us to the end of fourth topic. Let us start with the fifth topic. So if you see here, again these are the constitutional provisions. Now each and every, I do not want you to remember the articles and the section, but this is in this description. For example, Article 253, it establishes three types of municipalities. One is the Nagar Panchayat for the transitional areas, then we have municipal council for smaller urban areas, municipal corporation for the large urban areas. Then Article 243R, it talks about all municipal seats are to be filled by direct elections. So direct election takes place at the local level as well, right? Then the ward committees, the constitution and composition of ward committees. The ward committees are mandated for municipalities with a population of 3 lakh or more. So the question or statement in the examination can be that ward committee is mandated for all the municipalities. No, irrespective of the population. No, only for population more than 3 lakh. Then reservations are also given to SC, ST and women, and also backward classes in the municipal election. Tenure is fixed. Elections to be held within 6 months after the tenure ends. So you have to remember the constitutional provisions for both the Panchayati Raj institutions as well as the municipalities. So here again in the notes in the PDF mentioned in the description, you will find the scope, you will find this table. Ensure, for example, district planning committee. Now question has been asked, I guess in the year 18 or 19 on the district planning committee. So these are all the constitutional provisions under the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Again, very easy, self-explanatory. So I request you to please go through this dimension as well. Now, the context of the next topic. This topic is on anti-defection law. The Supreme Court recently dismissed a plea challenging the anti-defection law contained in the 10th schedule. The law plays a key role in ensuring political stability. So at times the question can be asked in this manner, that the purpose of anti-defection law, and they'll give you 4 options. Now it may seem very easy that we all know the purpose of anti-defection law, but at times the options are asked in such a way that students end up getting confused. So the purpose, this is the keyword, to ensure political stability, which means the act, it discourages the elected members from switching the political sides. Now question on anti-defection law again has been asked in the question as it was asked in the year 2022. Let us try to understand first and foremost what is defection. Defection, which means to abandon. Now, anti-defection law, defection which means to abandon, let's say, a position or group in which you are a part. In politics, defection refers to, and when an elected representative changes his loyalty, which means he changes his membership from one political party to another. Which means, let's say, a member of let's say Congress is elected from the Congress ticket, but now after election is changing his side to BJP, or let's say vice versa. Now, this practice has been referred to as floor crossing. Historically, it is referred to as floor crossing. Why? Because in the British Parliament saw the members physically switch sides in the House to show how their allegiance kept on changing. Now, if we understood what is defection, what exactly is anti-defection law then? Defection is switching sides, anti is to stop it. This law was passed in the year 1985 via the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act, and a new schedule, that is 10th schedule, was added in the Indian Constitution. The main aim is to prevent elected members from switching political parties after the election, which could otherwise lead to political instability. Which means, let's say, let me give an example. Let's say Parliament has a capacity of 500 seats. Example. Now Congress has, let's say, 230 seats and BJP has, let's say, 270 seats. Now BJP has formed the government. After 1 year, let's say Congress buys around 70 seats from BJP. 70 members of BJP have defected to Congress. Now the number increases 70 to 300, and their government falls because now the number is going down from 270 to 200, which is less than 50%, that is 251. Now, please remember that this law is applicable to both the members of parliament as well as the members of legislative assemblies. It's applicable to both parliament as well as the state legislature. Now, what are the grounds for disqualification? An elected member may be disqualified under grounds which is mentioned in the anti-defection law framed in the year 1985. One ground is if a member voluntarily gives up the membership of the political party. Let's say I'm a member of Congress, I say that I do not want to be a member of Congress, now I want to switch side. This doesn't have to be in writing, which means, let's say, now this is actually a, let's say, interpretation, which means even if I do not write a letter, let's just submit my resignation, if my behavior, if my act goes against the interest of the party, even then anti-defection law can be applicable. It doesn't have to be in writing. Even public statements or action against the political party can be treated as giving up the membership. So I'm a member of Congress, right? Either I give my resignation or I speak against the Congress. Even if I'm speaking against the Congress, this means that I have left my political party. I left the political party I was supporting. Grounds for disqualification. First, If you voluntarily give up or your action goes against the interest of the political party. Second, that is voluntarily. Second is if a member votes or abstains from the voting in the house against the direction issued by the political party, which means voting or abstaining. Let's say recently Waqf bill was passed in Lok Sabha, right? Which means every political party has a whip. Whip, which means a person of the political party who is responsible to regulate the behavior of the members of that political party. Every political party has a whip, which means let's say monitor. Let's say the whip of BJP political party has directed all the members of BJP to vote in favor of the bill, which means every member of the BJP has to vote in favor of the bill. Let's say the Congress whip has directed all the members of the Congress to vote against the bill. Now, if any of the Congress members supports the bill, anti-defection law will be applicable. These are the two grounds for disqualification. Now, there are some exceptions as well. The disqualification can be avoided if the member had prior permission from the party. Let's say the Congress MP has received a permission from the High Command that he wants to support the bill. Subject to the Congress High Command condones the action within 15 days of the incident, which means the Congress political party should forgive that MP for voting in favor of the bill. Prior permission or the political party condoning the action of the MP. In this case, anti-defection law is not applicable. Anti-defection law is not applicable. Then there are other instances as well. Let's say, for example, if an independent MP or MLA joins political party after being elected. An independent MP or MLA, if he joins a political party after being elected, is exempt from disqualification. Or let's say if a nominated member joins a political party 6 months after being nominated. Nominated member joining a political party after 6 months after being nominated, again they are exempt from disqualification. Now, when it comes to authority to disqualify, who has the authority to disqualify? Simple. When it comes to Rajya Sabha, it is the chairman. And when it comes to Lok Sabha, it is the speaker. Which means the chairman or speaker have the power to decide disqualification under the anti-defection law. Now, if a disqualification case involves a chairman or let's say speaker themselves, then the decision is made by another member chosen by the house. Now, all such proceedings are considered to be a part of the, let's say, parliament or the state legislature proceedings. Now, please remember, the law does not specify any time limit within which the presiding officer is expected to take a decision. And this actually has resulted in a lot of delays and the dilution of the anti-defection law. How? Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, again the same example, BJP has 270 seats, the Congress has 230 seats. Now, the speaker, he is usually from the BJP, right? Now, let's say for example, of the 230 members, 30 members want to defect. 30 members want to defect. Which means these 30 members from Congress have actually spoken against the Congress political party, have criticized the political party, and by their action it suggests that they are no more interested to continue their membership of the political party. Which means the speaker, as the 30 members are speaking against the interests of the political party Congress, these 30 members should be disqualified. This is what the law says, isn't it? But the speaker simply does not take any action. Why? Speaker is of the Bharatiya Janata Party. By law, these members should be defected. Now the speaker does not take any action. He keeps silent. He does not take any action. Which means these 30 members now are working as members of the BJP without the law being applicable on them. This is a loophole that was present in the act, and this has been widely misused by all the political parties who have formed the government. And let's say for example, if a member of BJP has to defect to Congress, the speaker will immediately take the action. This is how the role of speaker, which actually the role of speaker is to be neutral. Speaker is nothing but is the umpire, and umpires cannot be biased. But here, the speakers have often acted in a biased manner. I hope you understood this provision, right? Now, there are some exceptions to the law. Which are the exceptions to the law? There are certain exceptions where the members are not disqualified. One, when the members of political party or when the political parties merge. This is referred to as merger provision, which means if 2/3 of a political party members they agree to merge with another political party, then both those who join the new party and those who stay back won't be disqualified. But the condition is that 2/3 of the members should agree to merge with another political party. Now earlier before 2003, a split by 1/3 of the party was also considered valid. 1/3 split by 1/3 of the party was also considered valid, but this exception has been removed from the law, which means now the provision of split does not exist. The provision of merger, it exists. And also, a speaker or chairman can resign from their political party when they're elected, which means, let's say, of all the members of Lok Sabha, one member gets elected to speaker. Now, when the speaker he resigns from the political party, he is exempt from disqualification. Why? Because it is the job of a speaker to remain neutral. Unfortunately, no speaker nor chairman has ever resigned. Once they cease to be a speaker, they can again join the political party. But no one does so. No one does so. Talking about judicial review. Now, originally in the year 1985, the anti-defection law stated that the decision of the presiding officer was final and not open to court challenge. However, in the famous Quijotto-Holohan case, Quijotto-Holohan case of 1992, the year is 1992, Supreme Court struck down this provision, which means now the decision taken by the presiding officer of the house can be challenged before the court. Which means now, let's say, if the decision of a speaker or chairman is found to be, let's say, frivolous, or let's say was not acted in a unbiased manner, then the the judiciary can step into it and can also declare the decision to be unconstitutional, which means decision of a presiding officer can be challenged before the judiciary. This brings us to the end of this topic. Let us focus on the next topic, which is the money bill. Now the Chief Justice recently now he is no more the Chief Justice, right? Recently agreed to list and hear a group of petitions challenging the centre's use of money bill route to pass several controversial amendments in Parliament. This topic actually highlights the misuse of money bill. The petitions raised in the Supreme Court, they raise concerns that the government may have bypassed parliamentary procedures by labeling ordinary bills as money bills. This is how the bills have been misused. When it comes to money bill, Lok Sabha has got more power over Rajya Sabha, and that's the reason the petitioners have argued that the central government intentionally have labeled ordinary bills as money bills to bypass the parliament scrutiny, especially the scrutiny by the Rajya Sabha. Now, see, question on money bill has been asked in the examination as it was asked just a year back, 2 years back, that is in the year 2023. Now, what is a money bill? Money bill is a special kind of legislative proposal. Now, money bill, it only deals with financial matters of the government. Now, this money bill is defined very, very important in Article 1, Article 110 of the Indian Constitution. Very, very important. Make sure you remember this article. These bills are restricted to certain specific areas related to public finances. And only Lok Sabha has the authority to introduce and pass them. The Rajya Sabha cannot amend a money bill. It can only give recommendation, and it is up to the Lok Sabha whether to accept it or simply reject it. Now, a bill qualifies as a money bill if it deals. See, for a bill to be qualified as a money bill, the bill should deal exclusively with taxation, government borrowing, consolidated fund and the contingency fund, expenditure, receipts and audits. Which means only when a bill introduced in the Lok Sabha deals with any of these subjects, then the bill can be labeled or named as money bill, else the bill cannot be labeled or named under money bill. So taxation, so you can quickly go through these subjects. Now please remember, for a bill to be treated as money bill, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the Speaker should certify that the decision is final. Which means it is the Speaker's permission. We need the permission of Speaker to decide whether a bill is a money bill. And once a Speaker certifies the bill to be a money bill, this decision is final and cannot be questioned in court. This is what the Constitution says. So when it comes to money bill, it is the prerogative of the Speaker to decide whether a bill is a money bill or it is not. Now, what is the procedure for the passage of money bill? First, it is introduced, right? A money bill can be only be introduced in the Lok Sabha, the lower house, on the recommendation of the president. One, the president has to recommend it, and then it gets introduced only in the Lok Sabha and not in the Rajya Sabha. Second, the speaker is the one who certifies it, right? Third, the bill must be passed by simple majority, no need of special majority. Third point to remember, after passing the Lok Sabha, the money bill is sent to the Rajya Sabha, which can recommend changes but cannot, which means Rajya Sabha can only amend or give recommendation to the Lok Sabha to amend certain provisions. Once the money bill is passed by the Lok Sabha and any recommendation from the Rajya Sabha, it is sent to President. President cannot withdraw. Now here, once it is passed, the bill is referred to the president. Now the president cannot withdraw it, cannot withdraw from signing it. The president has to sign it. Why? Because the bill has been introduced only after the recommendation of the president. So the president cannot refrain from signing the money bill. He has to. This is a constitutional provision. Now let's come back to the topic. Let us come back to the topic in order to understand why the money bill has become so controversial. Now, students, in recent years, the government has been criticized for using the money bill to pass major laws and amendments that critics say that they do not fall within the scope of money bill or Article 110. Why? Because we know that money bill, it effectively silences the Rajya Sabha, where the ruling party may not have a majority. as a result, the purpose of checks and balances within the bicameral system is actually weakened. The purpose of Rajya Sabha is to ensure that bills are not passed hastily. And here, by labeling the bill as money bill, the governments at times are misusing the bills or misusing the provision. Now let us try to discuss the examples of the contentious amendments passed as money bill, which means these are the bills that were passed in the let's say parliament that actually resulted in the petitioners approaching the Supreme Court. The first one is the Aadhaar Act of 2016. Now talking about the Aadhaar Act of 2016. The Aadhaar, right? The Aadhaar Act of 2016 was passed as a money bill in the year 2016 under Article 110. Now, the government justified this by saying that the Aadhaar was linked to financial benefits. Which financial benefits? Such as subsidies and welfare transfers, let's say from the Consolidated Fund of India. But the critics and legal experts, they pointed that the Aadhaar involved much more than the financial matters. Yes, it was meant to give subsidies, but it also collected and stored sensitive biometric and personal data of individuals. And this actually had a wide ranging effect on privacy, civil liberties, and also access to public services. Now, since a money bill bypasses the Rajya Sabha's scrutiny, many critics argue that using this route actually weakened the democratic process for a law that had significant non-financial areas or components as well. So here the Aadhaar bill was meant to provide subsidies, but it also involved or included other elements which do not qualify to fall under Article 110. The next controversial act which was passed as money bill was the Finance Act of 2017. Now, this Finance Act of 2017 again was passed as money bill. Now, one of the major changes was the restructuring of tribunals. These tribunals are nothing but they're quasi-judicial bodies that deal with the disputes in various fields like environment, taxation, then company law, etc. It also gave the government powers to decide service conditions, appointments, and also removal of the tribunal members. The experts they argued that these matters did not fall under exclusive Article 110. The experts also viewed that this move was an attempt to avoid the scrutiny of the Rajya Sabha where the government actually lacked majority. The third controversial bill that was passed was the Prevention of Money Laundering Act in the year 2015. Now, even the Prevention of Money Laundering Act was included in the Finance Bill and was passed as money bill over the years. It was started, this amendment bill was introduced in the year 2015. Now remember, this amendment had a direct impact on the individual rights. It also included the enforcement powers of agencies like the ED, then the CBI, the search and seizure provisions. And most importantly, it had a very interesting provision which dealt with reversal of the burden of proof in money laundering cases, which suggests that in normal cases the burden of proof is on the law enforcement officials, which means when the law enforcement officials such as police is, let's say, accusing or arresting a person, this law enforcement official has to prove that a person who has been arrested has actually committed a crime. But here in the prevention of money laundering case, the accused has to prove that he is not involved in that particular case or crime. And these changes were not financial in nature, and that's the reason passing this bill as money bill was contentious, and that's the reason this actually raised concerns about the dilution of the legal safeguards and also most importantly the due process of law. The question is, or the one may wonder why this is problematic, because passing these laws as money bills, it restricts the role of Rajya Sabha, which is actually served, or which whose purpose is actually to serve as checks and balances in the overall legislative process. Now we know that Speaker of the Lok Sabha, he is the one who actually certifies the bill as money bill, and this certification is final and also not subject to judicial review, which means the power, there's too much of power in the hands of the Speaker. And when money bill route is misused, it undermines the parliament democracy. It reduces the accountability of the legislature and it also limits the voice of the opposition. Now, these examples continue to be a part of the ongoing legal and constitutional debates and the petitions which are actually pending in the Supreme Court, which may decide, now the petition may decide whether such practices they violate the spirit of the constitution or whether they are violating or misusing the provisions of article 110 of the Indian constitution. I hope you understood these examples. Let us move on to the next topic. Now, the next topic, it deals with cabinet secretary, right? Now, cabinet secretary has been, TV Somanathan has been appointed as the cabinet secretary, highest ranking civil servant in the country, right? Now, the cabinet secretary, right? An IS officer, the highest position an IS officer can reach up to is the cabinet secretary, right? And in the state, the highest position an IS officer can reach up to is the chief secretary. Chief secretary. Now, the position of cabinet secretary is actually very, very important to ensure smooth coordination across various ministries and departments at the central level. Now, we have so many ministries, under ministries we have so many departments. So it is a cabinet secretary who is actually responsible to ensure that there is smooth functioning between different ministries and different departments. At times, coordination becomes quite a challenge. That's the reason we have the cabinet secretary who will ensure that he is actually coordinating well to ensure governance is smooth. Now, out of the following statements, choose the one that brings out the principle underlying cabinet form of government. So, questions on cabinet secretary, different positions have been asked in the examination as it was asked in the year 2017. So, again, such topics become very, very important for the examination. The question is, who is the cabinet secretary? Just now we discussed that he is the topmost executive official and civil servant in the government of India, not the government of state, which means he is the administrative head of the cabinet secretariat, and he is also the ex officio chairman of the civil services board. He is the ex officio chairman of civil services board. Now this civil services board, it plays a very, very important role in managing the senior civil service postings and appointments. And who is the chairman? It is the cabinet secretary. The cabinet secretariat, and the cabinet secretary, he heads the cabinet secretariat. Now, this cabinet secretariat, it operates directly under the Prime Minister. And this cabinet secretariat is actually the main channel of communication between the Prime Minister and the different ministries. So such type of questions are asked in the examination. So make sure you remember who is cabinet secretary, the department is leading, what exactly is his role, the functions, right? So I hope so the points that we discussed, each and every point is important. Make sure you remember each and every point. Now, talking about the roles and responsibilities of the cabinet secretary. Now, as per the government of India, allocation of business rules 1961, the cabinet secretariat has functions like, for example, he provides secretarial support to the cabinet and its committees. For example, like to circulate the agendas, to record the decisions, and ensure there is timely follow-ups of the, let's say, the procedure or the decisions taken. Then he also needs to manage the rules of business which are designed to make sure the government functions in an organized and coordinated manner. Right? Then talking about the cabinet secretariat also administers the transaction of business rules 1961. Now these rules guide how the decisions are taken and implemented across different ministries. Now the cabinet secretariat, it also performs very important roles like to ensure interministerial coordination. Interministerial coordination, for example, when multiple departments are involved in a decision or when conflicts arise. Then the cabinet secretariat also ensures that he builds consensus. The institution is building consensus through standing committees or the ad hoc committees of secretaries which are often formed to examine the complex policy issues. Then also the cabinet secretariat also leads crisis management efforts by coordinating efforts or actions across ministries during emergencies of unforeseen events. Then see again, these points are self-explanatory. So again, there's nothing much to explain. These are something that you have to remember, you have to learn, you have to keep in mind. So again, there's no point in just reading out or explaining these points under these dimensions. So make sure that you read the points from the copy from the PDF which is mentioned in the description box. So make sure you're actually opening the notes and ensuring you're revising, you're going through the points, because again these points are very important. And this brings us to the end of the last chapter, last topic of the day: oath of members of parliament. Now during the first session of the 18th Lok Sabha, uh, Bhartruhari Mehta became the first MP to take the oath before the President Draupadi Murmu, acting as the Speaker pro tem. Now it highlighted the constitutional and ceremonial importance of oath taking. What is the importance, constitutional and ceremonial importance? Let us try to understand one by one. And this has been a question again asked on the parliament in the year 2012. So many questions are asked from this chapter. Okay. Now, first let's talk about the term and status of members of parliament. Now, please remember that an MP's official term begins when the election commission formally declares the election results. This is mentioned in section 73, of the Representation of People's Act. When the election commission formally declares the election results. This is mentioned in RP Act. Now, from this date onwards, from the date the Election Commission declares results, the MPs are entitled to receive their salaries and allowances. Once elected, they are also expected to uphold by their party's commitments. And if they switch sides, this anti-defection law, that is, they have to punish them. Importance of parliamentary oath. Now, under Article 99 of the Indian Constitution, MPs must take an oath before they can participate in debates or let's say vote in the house. And if they try to participate in the proceeding or vote without taking an oath, then a financial penalty of 500 is applicable, and this again is mentioned in Article 104 of the Indian Constitution. Right, and if an elected, right, let's say for example, if ministers who have not been elected are allowed to speak and take part but cannot vote. See, members who have lost the election can also be appointed as ministers, but the condition is that within 6 months they need to be a member of either of the house. Within the 6 months period, they can participate in the proceedings, but they cannot vote in the proceedings or let's say with respect to any legislative proposal. Talking about the historical background of the oath taking ceremony. Now, originally, the draft constitution did not include a reference to God in the oath. During the debate, some members, proposed that the president and MPs be allowed to mention God while taking their oath. And finally, it was Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar who accepted this suggestion, reasoning that the mention of God could serve as a moral commitment for lawmakers. And the 16th Constitutional Amendment Act, which was passed in the year 1963, later added an important clause. It requires MB to also pledge to uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India. And this actually reflects that national interest during the times of internal and external threat, which means the MPs are also expected to uphold or take care of the national interest. Now, what about the MPs who are in jail and what about their oath taking? Now, the MPs who are in jail must attend parliament within 60 days. They should attend the parliament within 60 days, or else their seat will be declared vacant. Now, courts may allow such MPs, right, to come and take their oath, as was seen in the Atul Kumar Singh case of 2020. Atul Kumar Singh of the year 2020. Actually, this person was lost in jail and he was granted permission to do so while he was in jail, which means if the members who are in jail can take an oath. What are the language options for oath? Which means the MPs can take their oath in any of the 22 languages in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution, and it also includes Hindi, English and Sanskrit and several other regional languages. Now, this provision actually promotes linguistic diversity and it also ensures there's inclusiveness in parliament. Now, talking about the pro tem speaker. Who is a pro tem speaker? Now, see, the term pro tem means temporary, or for timing. Although the post of the pro tem speaker is not mentioned in the constitution, it is explained in the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs handbook. Now, please remember, after every general election, a pro tem speaker is appointed to conduct the initial proceedings of the Lok Sabha, which includes administering oath to the newly elected MPs and also to oversee the election to the speaker. Now, even after the dissolution of Lok Sabha, the outgoing speaker does not immediately vacate office, because as per Article 94 of the Indian Constitution, the speaker continues to remain in office until just before the first meeting of the newly elected Lok Sabha. So I hope, so this pro tem speaker, he is usually the senior most member of the house. So the essence being that the oath taking ceremony in parliament is more than just a formality. It marks the beginning of an MP's duty and reflects a legal as well as the moral responsibilities. Now, whether it's about ensuring constitutional loyalty or following its legislative procedures. This act of taking oath, right, and the role of speaker pro tem, it highlights a fact, or it highlights the principle of accountability and let's say the tradition that is followed in the parliament, right? So I hope you understood the concept of pro tem speaker, and this brings us into the end of the last topic of the day. I hope students you understood each and every topic that we discussed today. Again, I request the most important point being, it is very important to revise whatever we discuss every day. So make sure that you are opening the link in the description box, downloading the notes of this topic, this session, and make sure you are revising each and every point, especially wherever I emphasize, please mark a star. Marking star to that point will ensure that you are very particular about revision, and while revision this will remind you to focus on that point, because such points are very important in the examination. I hope you have loved watching or listening to all the topics that we discussed today, and make sure you spread the word to as many people, as many needy students or aspirants as possible, because there are many needy aspirants who are in need of quality videos, quality current affairs videos, and that's the reason we have brought before you quality videos. We are covering each and every important topic important for the prelims examination. I'm pretty much hopeful that majority of the questions in this year's prelims will be asked from the topics that we have covered or we are covering in our prelims masterclass program. On this note, I'll call it a wrap. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and share to as many aspirants as possible. Thank you once again.